go.
Are you ready to go?
Yes!
Yes. Super. All right, so let's invite our first keynote speaker with a little bit of provocative title, I would say, but I love a little provocation here and there.
In the morning.
In the morning, especially to set the tone with what's going on in the world. Welcome on the stage, Alex.
Alex.
Thank you to Jan for inviting me to speak. You know, it's as an Irish guy who always thinks Irish people have the best hospitality. Coming to Finland, I'm always blown away by what great people and what a great city Helsinki is. So it's great to be here. Maybe just a bit of background. I'm a partner at Silverstripe based in London. We're an investment management firm focused solely on fintech. Origins of ourselves, where we've been investing for about 30 years with principal capital. We came out of the US. One of the most successful investment firms across financial services. We took less than 100 million of capital in 97, and we've generated just over 10 billion in kind of free cash flow from those businesses. And maybe I'll just start with a question, just to kind of get a sense of how the room thinks about venture capital. So if you could kind of think about this as you're a venture manager investing in Series A and B companies, and just get a sense of, do you think you are a builder of businesses, or are you an investor into a company? So if you're an investor into the company, just please put up your hands. Okay, and if you think you're a builder of businesses, please put up your hand. Okay, so slightly more with investors. So our belief as a house view is, if you're an investor, you're most likely passive. But if you're a builder, you're active and you're adding value. And we believe you've got to be a builder if you want to differentiate yourself and add alpha. And maybe just in terms of the evolution of how we got here today and why we think venture is broken. In early 2022, one of our now investors, and he's one of the world's top venture growth investors, he called me up and he just asked me a question. He said, "Do you think my business is commoditized?" And just to give you a sense, he'd raised just over 10 billion of capital since 2008. He'd seen the NAV of his portfolio go from 50 billion down to about 35 billion. And he had the last kind of 3 years where he was competing aggressively on the same deals with all the other big mega funds, and he was being given 1 week to due diligence. And he was really questioning the viability of his business. And, you know, should he continue as he's going along as a mega fund, just collecting management fees, or should he actually drastically restructure his business and strategy and right-size the firm? And it started to make us think internally. And it aligned a lot with what we were seeing in the market. And we'd been really questioning, does venture really add any alpha, or is it just the weight of capital that's moving valuations? And that was from direct experience, where we had invested primary directly into deals. The other investors were some of the world's top VC funds and private equity funds. And what we saw was, when anything went wrong, those VCs and PEs would hire consultants. And we get a call from the CEO, because we're operators as well as investors, saying, "We need your help. Get these consultants off my back. We're trying to run a business." So we would go in, we would help the management team fix the problem. We'd get the company back on track. And a month later at the board meeting, we'd have this big invoice from the consultancy firm. And I just thought, you know, something's broken here. So I went to our principal, who runs the family office, who's our main shareholder. And I said, you know, look, there's a gap in the market here. You know, we should build an investment management platform with a strong point of differentiation, where we focus on alpha, and we do that by bringing more than capital. And I think the time is now. So if we look at what is the problem, at the moment, you know, the problem has really been driven since 2008, when the central banks around the world started printing capital. And that continued, or was heightened, by the global pandemic. And, you know, VC hit a peak in 2021, September 2021, where the global AUM went to 2 trillion. but that was up 40% since 2019. And to give you a sense, that started at 200 billion in 2012. The average deal ticket doubled from 2012 to 2021. And most fascinating, we had 1 unicorn in 2007, 4 unicorns in 2009, 45 in 2017, 105 in 2020, and 2021 there was 510. We didn't think that was sustainable. We didn't think it was real. And ultimately what's happened is, capital has suddenly, there's a cost to capital, and valuations have massively reduced. So just to give you a sense, Series D, from Q1 22 to Q23, Series D valuations were down nearly 60%. Series B valuations were down 44%, and we'd had the lowest number of IPOs since 2009. And that's ultimately reduced the liquidity into VC, where investment volumes last year were down 80%. So what's our solution? We think if you're going to try and drive alpha, you need to bring more than capital. As one of our founders came to us and they chose us over Sequoia, who offered all the money with no conditions, and we had a huge amount of conditions and control. He said, too many companies fail as they're just given money and left to their own devices to succeed or fail. And he ultimately said, if I succeed, I'll be on Sequoia's website, and if I don't, I'll just be another number in an Excel sheet. And he wanted a partner to help build a firm over 15 years. One of the gaps in the market in the EU is it's a lack of operational expertise. And I'm stealing this stat from a Swedish gentleman I met last year who had a very successful exit in the NASDAQ. And he said to me that 15% of European VCs only have operational expertise at the partner level. You compare that to the US, that number is closer to 70%. So we believe that when you're looking at a VC manager, you need to have at least 50% of the team having some sort of operational expertise in-house. You need to engage with founders. We speak to our founders every single day, even if it's by WhatsApp, 7 days a week. And we measure our activity and input versus the output on what's happening in those firms to make sure that we're doing our job. One of the things that I've really noticed over the last couple of years is if you're going to be on a board as an investor director, add value, and if you're not adding value, get off. At Series A and B, you've just got to add value. One of the big differences I think that we've started to see is we started to try and change the status quo. So we think one of our big value adds or differentiators is we bring what we call a structured equity approach to venture. It's actually one of our investors described it as more of a private equity growth approach to venture. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to protect downside, we're trying to align interests, and we're trying to capture that near-term upside, taking as little valuation risk as we can at Series A and B. And we've done that by creating customized warrants. So I kind of joke that we are our personal lawyer's dream because every time we come up with a deal, we have a new warrant instrument, and the dollar signs go off in their head. But we have had to challenge the industry. As one deal that we won, their lawyer got on the phone, and the first thing they said to us, the first thing the lawyer said to us on the phone is, "We don't want to do this deal." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "It's not venture." To which I replied, "Well, what is venture?" For us, venture is about adding value and helping the founders build the company. We ultimately think so we call these things equalization warrants, and I'm happy over coffee to explain a little bit more about what they do. But we think that these equalization warrants, where we really try and protect our downside and also capture near-term upside, will help us outperform over the rest of the market. One of the other things that we think about venture is, everyone focuses on the 2 to 3 outliers within their portfolio. I don't think anything's going to change there. That will always be the case in venture. But from a greater portfolio risk management point of view, we think our reasonable bets will outperform those in other funds because of these equalization warrants. And that could add an extra 1 to 3x return overall on the DPI. Look, with the world of free money, I think the other thing, as investors we got to look for is, are the fund size optimal to maximize LP returns? We've done some research and we found that funds at $300 million or less are proven to be 50% more likely to return 2.5x in DPI over a larger fund. We started doing some other research with some of the mega funds, and actually, if you were to add up over the last 10 years, over the last 6 to 10 vintages of the mega funds, there's only 3 of them that have a DPI on an aggregate basis greater than 1. And as one of those funds said, they returned 40x on a deal last year, and that's the only reason that they're positive. So really look at DPI of the aggregate fund lives rather than just the best performing funds. The other element is, what's the GP co-invest? We're putting up 40% co-invest into our funds. When we've looked and we've allocated funds to the family office over the years, most of the time it's 1.5% to 5%, and most of the time that money is borrowed. Ensure that managers are focusing on optimizing liquidity as well as paper gains. We think that too many managers are extending the fund lives by investing at too high a basis day one and getting their original underwrites wrong. As one investor said to us, return my capital, do as you say, and I'll most likely reinvest. Extend the fund and delay the return, I won't be investing again. I think we'll, over the course of the next couple of days, talk a lot about where the world's going with technology and automation, and if we want to think about AI. We really query whether generalists can survive in the current market. The pace of technology change is just so fast, and we're seeing that with our deal flow and teams wanting to spin out of various different companies. And what was a moat last year might not be a moat this year, and it's just going to get faster and faster. So when we're sitting in house, we feel that we have a very strong competitive advantage in fintech and the fact that we're a 30-year specialist in that sector. However, today, I'm looking at deals and I'm really querying whether this technology is going to survive over the next 4 to 5 years. We're very lucky that on the other side of the family office, we've got a team of 10 people, and all they do is invest into deep tech and AI. So we're able to leverage that portfolio. But I think when you're looking at fund managers, we really now need to drill into the expertise and the dynamic of the team, and are they recruiting for the future and the threats that they have. I guess in summary, where are we? What are we saying here? Are we reinventing the wheel? I don't think we're reinventing the wheel in terms of, is venture broken and what's the future? I think we're going back to what venture was in the 1990s. And for me, in the 1990s, venture was really about being a right-sized fund, focusing on multiple returns. It was actively working with founders. It was focused on the investment fundamentals. And it was focused on the route to long-term sustainable liquidity and building businesses through the stages. I try to do a bit of research here just to give you a sense of, what's been the returns of the DPI of funds. And it's quite difficult to kind of break it down on what was actually a true kind of fund exit or not. But there was a report, and this is mainly UK funds from Burgess, where they looked at the returns from funds from 1984 to 2008 vintages. When you looked at the average weighted return from the 1990 funds, it was 3.86 and just under a 40% IRR. The peak years, about 93 to 95, were closer to 6 and 70% IRR. When you looked at the average in the 2000s, it was 0.3% IRR and 1.1x. Trying to look from 2013 to 2018, BVCA have some data where it's a 1.8x and just under a 20% IRR. So I think what that really shows is we've got too big. There's too much capital chasing too few deals with no point of differentiation. So really our focus and where we think we're going to get outsized returns and where we think the industry really should head is get back to basics, get your structure right from day one. It's all about the buy. You make your money on the buy. Have very effective and active portfolio and company management. Stay close to the founders. Work with them. They need help. Doesn't matter who you put around them. They're going to make mistakes. The market's going to move. They need your help. Focus on liquidity, not paper gains, and maximizing returns in a timely manner. We think if you do this consistently, you'll result in having more winners. And above all, for us, you know, venture investing should be about having fun. We should be passionate about building companies, not getting rich in management fees. And don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. You know, we need to evolve constantly. And, you know, I think if we do that, we'll have a much better ecosystem where people want to invest in VC and want to build great businesses. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Sorry, bear with me. I think really trying to dig into their track record and find out what value did they add versus market movements. You know, because a lot of the time here, whether, you know, you can be looking at paper gains and not necessarily realize DPI. So really kind of diving into that. I think one of the things that we used to do and one of the things that we try and encourage our LPs to look at is look at our original underwrite memo and ask them, do they write an exit memo at the point of investment? And when they exited the deal, what did that look like from the time they invested? And things will always go wrong. They'll always go off track. And that way, if you can look at that, you can really dive into, well, what did they do? Did they sit back and just let the market move for success or failure? Or did they step in and actively help the founders deliver a return?
All right.
Come on.